everybody. Welcome to Rachel's Reviews. And today we have a very fun little extra episode that we're doing where we're ranking the Disney live action remakes. It's going to be fun. And today I have Lasse Vogt here with me. And you were last on to talk about the Pinocchio remake, and we'll have more to say about that. But thank you so much for coming on.
Yes, why do you hate me so much?
It was just, I was the first person I thought of. I was like, what can we talk about this
Oh,
week? Stanford's gone.
it's so like I actually thought when we did the Pinocchio thing, I thought, yeah, this is gonna be the last time we're gonna talk about these Disney things. And then when you wrote to me a couple of days ago, I was like, oh great, yeah, a new episode. I would love to be on again. And then we're gonna rank the Disney remakes, and I'm like, fine.
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking, what could we talk about that? And because Wish hasn't come out yet, but I don't know. I was just like, well, maybe that would be fun. And
Actually, I have to say, this is kind of like the perfect timing because initially I thought you wanted to do this because the Snow White remake is approaching. And then
yeah,
just like very, very shortly after we said we're going to do this episode, they delayed it for a year. And I was like,
yeah.
this is freaking perfect.
Which is really interesting because I mean, I was surprised that they were delaying that for a year, and then they're also delaying Elio for a year, which Elio more surprised me because it would have very little impact from the strike because the animators and the everybody, pretty much everyone involved in the animation is a different union. It's not on strike, so it just must they just must need more time, I guess.
I really don't know what the background is of that one, but yeah, I mean, a lot of people say like, "Oh, it's the remake is in trouble." Whether no, I'm pretty sure it's because of the strikes. So yeah, let's
Yeah,
see what happens with that one. But
yeah.
it's really funny how that worked out in a way now for
It is
us.
really funny because I mean this Snow White thing, it's just been one mess after another. And then they released this image where it was very confusing because they had said that, oh well, we're not going to have the dwarfs played by little people. And then they showed we there were some behind the scenes images that showed them of all different heights. And then now we get this new image that they're that was a it was like an artist rendering almost. And where they're all
Yeah,
little people again. And they're like, what is happening? It's a
at least
mess.
they look like little people, but I wouldn't trust that because remember in the Universal version, like Snow White and the Huntsman, they
Uh-huh.
hired actors of
Yeah.
like the actors who aren't little people, but they gave them the proportions of little people for some reason
Yeah.
instead of kind of like shrinking them in the way they
Right.
did in Lord of the Rings, where we kind of like kept the proportions and I don't know whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
so I wouldn't put it past them.
Oh
Just
no, I wouldn't either. Absolutely not. And it's just so weird to me. Like I just feel like who really wants a Snow White movie? And now they're remaking Bambi, and I'm just like, those properties, people do love the original animated films, but I just feel like they're just not as like ding worthy as,
they
because these movies are made for nostalgic adults, and who is nostalgic for, like really nostalgic for Snow White? Like, do people hear the Snow White music and they're like, oh, that brings me back to my childhood? Really? Probably
I mean,
not.
you could say this about any of these movies,
But
and
some have like clear fandoms, like, and people that love them, and then
that's
others you're
true.
just like,
But since the original Snow White was the first like proper animated feature film, there clearly is like a legacy there. There's
mm-hmm,
nostalgia there, and
yeah,
I actually had that experience when I rewatched it when my the littlest brother was old enough to
uh-huh.
watch it, and then I was like I hadn't seen it since I was a kid, and I had like nostalgic goosebumps when I heard that music
Yeah.
again.
Like
So
I love it, and it's one of my favorite Disney films, but I don't know, I just feel like there isn't like a hive around it the way that like A Little Mermaid or Beauty and the Beast, Lion King or something like that is.
yeah, and also because the story has been done so many times, like
Yeah,
also from
that's
different
true
stories. Like I
too.
mentioned, Snow White and the Huntsman, they did
Mm-hmm.
Mirror Mirror, which I think is awful.
It's
I
weird.
mean, at least they hired little people, but it doesn't matter. Like the movie absolutely sucks in my opinion. I don't like Tarsem Singh as a director
Uh,
anyway.
it's not
But
great, but I kind of appreciate how weird it is. Sometimes I
that's
like that with
fine.
movies,
That's
but yeah, it's very strange. But
yeah.
yeah, I mean, well, I guess let's talk about these live action remakes because, and I've said this many times, these movies are, no matter what Disney will tell you, they are not made for like a new generation of, you know, of fans. That is bogus. These movies are made for nostalgic adults who have been trained by Disney that live action is somehow an upgrade to over animation, which is really sad, but it's absolutely true. And I mean, that's why they have absolutely no legacy with children, these live action remakes. They're if they were really made for kids, then you would actually see the merchandising and the parks and the other things. You would see a legacy with these movies for kids, but there isn't. They are a flash in the pan, made to make a ton of money off of nostalgic adults who want to see the animated films that they grew up with in live action because they've been trained to think that live action is better and more sophisticated, more adult, more whatever. And and so that's whatever. That's it. That's what it is. But
Yes.
you know, and even if the movies end up being okay, which some of them have been okay, I've officially given 8 fresh ratings to these
Hmm.
movies. And so even if they end up being okay, there's been 18 total. I've given 8 fresh. The way that Disney sells them is so unpalatable to me and so frustrating, you know, as though we're modernizing this outdated relic from the past. And I thought, oh, surely Belle will be safe from their modernizing. No, they have to turn her into an inventor and they have to, you know, and I just hate it.
Yes, I absolutely agree with you. Yeah. The thing also is like I think most people wouldn't even think about the originals. It's like kind of problematic if it wasn't for these remakes, which kind of like point out some stuff.
Yeah. Like I could
And
never,
yeah.
in all the times that I'd seen Little Mermaid, I had never thought even once about the fact that Ariel signs her name. And then in this new one, they act like that was like a huge plot hole of like, oh, she could have written to Eric and, you know, written everything. And I'm like, okay, I guess that makes sense, but who cares? You're caught up in the magic of the movie. You don't need every little thing explained to you.
Exactly. That's
Oh,
that's really like it's like that whole Rogue One logic where it feels like the whole movie just exists to explain a plot hole which wasn't even a plot hole in the first
yeah,
place.
exactly.
Just for like nitpicky nerds.
Yeah. And then a lot of times the things that they do to explain it end up making things way worse and make things make no sense. Like especially in we'll talk about it, but in Beauty and the Beast, like the the things that they did to try to fill in the plot holes just made it everything worse. It was very
Yes,
frustrating.
absolutely. Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, there are 18 remakes depending on how you count. Because
Yes.
I followed your
Yeah.
list, so I put all 18 films on here. I wouldn't count some of these as actual remakes. Like they get kind of lumped in because they're, part of a trend in a way. But some
Yeah.
of them are either sequels to remakes or they are sequels to the original films, kind of.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, and we could have put we could have put Mary Poppins Returns, we could have put a few others in this list, but and we could have done like the 101.
Animations, yeah, from the early 2000s.
Yeah, actually, maybe we should put Mary Poppins Returns. I kind of forgot about it, even though I
I
love
haven't
it.
seen it,
Oh, you
so
haven't seen it? Okay.
I can't
Yeah,
comment
well, we
on it.
forgot about that. But the 101 Dalmatians movies, we started with Alice and then moved forward.
Hmm.
We
Even
have a
though
list of 18.
even though that one isn't really a remake. Like it partly has like
Yeah.
traces of a remake, but technically it's a sequel to the original
Yeah. I mean, I
story.
kind of consider this as sort of a franchise in and of itself, is like the
Hmm.
Disney live action. So, like, yeah, maybe it's not technically a remake, but I think it falls within like the umbrella of Disney live action remakes.
That's a good way of
Yeah,
explaining it and kind
yeah,
of lumping
yeah,
them together. Yes.
yeah, yeah. So let's get started, and I'll put a link to the letterbox with the 18 that we chose, and so people can put their own list. And I asked on Twitter what people thought, and I got tons of responses. So we'll have fun with that at the end. But are you a fan of Rachel's reviews? Do you look forward to Family Movie Night, Female Film Critics panels, or the Talking Disney podcast? If so, please consider supporting the podcast by becoming a Patreon. As a patron, you get to access monthly events such as the watch-alongs and Q&As, where you get to talk to stars and find out the behind the scenes of the movie making industry. And you can pick what I review for Family Movie Night or even become a guest on the podcast. Podcasts and YouTube channels are expensive, and I really, really could use your help. I would so appreciate it. You also get to be a member of the Facebook group where we talk about all the films that we're seeing, and we have so much fun. Go to patreon.com/hallmarkies and select one of the Rachel's fan tiers. That's patreon.com/hallmarkies. I have at number 18.
Number 18 is The Lion King.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons. I mean, we talked about this on our Pinocchio review, kind of ranted about that a little bit. The Lion King, I have a story with that because I watched that at a press screening, actually. When we're, critics get invited to see the movie early. And I was kind of glad that I was picked by the podcast network I was part of, because otherwise I wouldn't have gone see that movie. Like, it hadn't paid money for it. And I went to a press screening, paid no money for it, got a free drink, and still felt ripped off.
Yeah, I remember the rep coming up to me after, she's like, "What do you think of it?" And I was like, like, it was bad. That was really bad. Yeah, I have it like a tiny bit higher, but not much.
What is it? At what place is it with yours?
I have it at 15.
15. Okay, that's fair. Yeah, I mean, like, we don't really have to talk about it. Like, should we like spare it until we get to number 15?
Yeah. Well, okay, my number 18 is Pinocchio. I think it's one of the worst movies Disney's ever made. Like, period. End of story.
That's my number 17, so we can talk about it briefly, but we already talked about it for over an hour. So
we have a whole podcast. Yeah, I just thought it was atrocious in every way. I thought it looked terrible. I thought Tom Hanks was terrible. I thought the jokes were terrible. Chris Pine, never forget that joke is in a Disney movie. I hated all of the changes that they made. I hated them turning into root beer. I hated everything about it. I thought it was absolutely atrocious. And thank goodness Guillermo del Toro put out his movie that year. So we got
the same year. Like, if you ever, that movie didn't even need a counterpoint to seem even better than it already is. But still, good timing there.
I mean, it might be my least favorite like Disney movie I've ever seen.
That's totally fair. Yeah, I mean,
it's so bad.
I don't have much to add on top of our commentary and on what you already said. The reason it's not on the bottom is because, one, I don't have like that strong of a connection with the original. So that obviously plays a big part in some of these. And also because it kind of like, it was kind of fun watching it that like train wreck sort of way.
Yeah, I can see that.
Where it's like everything is just so wrong, but it's kind of fun laughing at it. So that is
that's
like
fair.
the only reason.
I mean, the reason why I would have other ones higher is I do think like The Lion King, there are parts that look impressive, as terrible as it is. Like, whereas I think this one even looked like crap.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed like some of the actual like real life performance, and I thought the voice actors did a good job. So that's also fair. Why Pinocchio isn't at the like bare bottom of
so
the barrel.
It's so bad. Well, what do you have at 17? Oh, you have Pinocchio.
Pinocchio, 17 already was. So what's your 17?
17 for me is Alice Through the Looking Glass. I just thought that this totally missed on all of the fun that they could have had, and the first one also misses for me. But I just groaned so much at the fact that they all thought that we needed a whole movie to explain why the Red Queen's head is big. Like, are you kidding me? That we have to have an entire story about her eating some pie and then like, I don't know. I was just like, what is going on? Why did we need this? Why did we need this movie? It's just,
It's not that low on my list, so we're gonna talk about that
oh,
one when we
okay.
come to it.
I just thought like, boy, they are reaching on this. What is
I
going
get it.
on?
I absolutely
And
get it.
yeah. So what do you have at 16?
16 is Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, me too. I also
Oh,
have it at
nice.
16. Yeah.
Wonderful. I didn't look very closely at your list, so I'm not quite sure
Yeah, no, it's fun.
what rankings you did.
Yeah.
Yeah, Beauty and the Beast. I saw that one in New York when we were there in 2017 because my father had a gig there, and so I actually went there with my littlest brother and my mother, and we went and saw it. And me and my mother, we talked like for over an hour afterwards about how much we disliked it. And I have to say that and I think I said this in the Pinocchio podcast, but the original Beauty and the Beast, the Disney one, is maybe like my favorite classic Disney musical. And it's the closest they've come to perfection, in my opinion, where it's like adapting, like taking the story, adapting it, changing it in a way that makes it better. Updating it in a way that makes it better. Just like a perfect casting, wonderful animation, timeless, wonderful songs, all around like goosebumps, everything. Like it's absolutely wonderful. And this remake is like, I mean, we already briefly talked about it, but it's like they changed stuff that didn't need to be changed. Like I think this is like the worst offender when it comes to trying to fix plot holes, which aren't really plot
for sure.
holes.
Yeah, no question.
Over explaining everything.
Yeah.
I think visually it's really ugly often. There are like some things where I'm kind of like design wise, okay, that's kind of neat. But for the most part, they make the designs of enchanted people very creepy. I think they're cast well, but it's still the designs are a huge problem. It's not well edited when it comes to the musical numbers. It's very random. It doesn't really understand the visual language. Like there's one key thing, for example, with Belle in the original. She's like the only character in the whole like village who wears blue, which makes her stand out. And in the remake, like half the people wear blue. So they don't even get the visual language of the original.
Yeah.
And it's just a shame.
I agree to all of the things you've said. And also, so when it first came out, I went and saw it, and then I saw it a second time with a notepad in hand, and I was literally just writing down everything I hated. And so I did an hour-long video where I just called it my nitpicking thoughts about Beauty and the Beast. And I just went through every little thing that that's still on the channel if people want to check it out and find out. Because I could go on for a long time, more than this video will allow. But there was just so many things that were ridiculous and terrible. That like the fact that they have Gaston become a war hero, like what? Why would you want? Yes, he's everyone's favorite guy, but he's not like a returning veteran. Like that's just such a weird choice. Why would you do that? And and then like the way that Maurice treats Gaston makes no sense. It's nonsensical because Gaston is the only one in the town in this version who is helping him. So and he's the one that's like getting a buggy, a wagon together, going to find Belle. And then they're talking and he says, and Maurice says, I would never let you date my daughter. So why would you say that to the one person in town who's actually helping you? It makes no sense. Like, because we know that he is a villain, but for that character at that moment, it makes no sense. And then why they decided to add this whole like backstory about Belle's mother getting the plague makes no sense. Like, why do we need this? What does that add to anything? Like,
don't invent like basically like a time travel like device book? and also like basically like a place to place travel book if you're not going to utilize it in any way that makes sense. That's really horrible. But the one thing I liked, and that was also different from the original, was the how they changed the character of Belle's father. I thought Kevin Kline's part really worked.
It was
In
sweet, but
yes,
the only part that I liked was I did think Evermore was a good song. That was beautiful.
and also the one comedic bit he has when the cub speaks to him and he's kind of like, oh, and then he just immediately like gets up and tries to run away. But that was
Yeah,
really well
that
timed
was cute. That was
comedically.
cute. And I would have forgiven a ton in this movie, and you'll see how forgiving I am of Little Mermaid. But I would have forgiven a ton in this movie if they had dubbed Belle's voice. I
Uh,
think if I was Emma Watson, I would be angry at them because
yes,
they made her sound terrible and artificial, and I don't care how bad her voice was. I would have liked it better than whatever they came up with. And it just sounded so bad because the rest of the cast was all traditional, like all traditional, Broadway type singers. And so her having this altered voice, this sounded electronic
yes.
this altered voice, it sounded so bad. And if I were her, I would be furious at them for the way that they made her sound. And I swear, if I were her people, I would have said, like, you absolutely have to dub me, because it just sounded so bad. And if her singing had been good, I would have forgiven a lot in this movie.
That wouldn't have made the movie better for me in any way,
But
but I
like, I'm a
absolutely
Broadway
agree.
girl, I'm a theater girl. Like, that's really important to me. And so like I said, I would have forgiven a lot. It would be way higher in this ranking if I liked her singing.
And my
For
parents are
me.
both professional singers, and so my mother was also kind of like wincing next to me. She
Yeah, it was
noticed the
so
problems as
bad.
well.
It was so bad. The singing was, and it's not just that it was bad, it was that it didn't fit with the style and tone and everything else going on with the rest of the movie. And so it just stood out so bad to
Yeah, I
me.
also hated the whole thing of like the fairy just kind of like hanging around and like watching with his like blank expression all the
Yeah.
time. Like that got really annoying. Like
Yeah.
all around, it's just like such an uninspired, unnecessary movie based on one of
It's
the
absolutely
best movies
terrible.
ever, basically.
Yeah.
So it does everything a remake shouldn't do,
And even the
which
dress, the
is
yellow dress sucked. I hated the yellow
everything. Like it's so
dress.
much, and also like I heard that originally they wanted to do the beast like practically, and then they changed it at the last second, and that you can really tell.
Yeah.
Such a shame all around. I thought
Yeah.
like
I
the new
agree.
songs were unnecessary, like everything. It's just the one thing like I thought like for this, for the old music, it was orchestrated well, it was arranged well, but all
Yeah.
around,
Yeah.
it's yeah.
Well, so what do you have at 15?
My 15 is Peter Pan and Wendy.
Okay.
What's your 15?
My 15 is That's Where I Have Lion King. And I
Okay.
guess it gets to 15 just because I do think there are some impressive visuals in moments. The scenery, some of the spectacle, but I hate it. I absolutely hate it. I think it's terrible. And how does it end up being 20 minutes longer when when they have no idea and they didn't add anything meaningful? It's just so flat.
Yes,
Terrible.
it's so flat. Like it's like I described it when I did the review on Matthew Buck's Film Brain podcast. I described it
Uh-huh.
as the crowning achievement of unnecessary
Yeah, that's very
because it's
true.
just like it's
Yeah.
just the same movie done worse.
Yeah. It really is. I mean, yeah. Yep. Yep. So what do you, oh, you had Peter Pan and Wendy. I have that actually, it's actually one of my fresh, shocking.
That's fine.
But so I guess we'll talk about that coming up. But
Yes.
so what do you have at 14?
My 14 is Aladdin.
Okay. I have that at 9, so a little
Okay,
bit
what's your
higher.
14?
My 14 is Alice in Wonderland. I just hate these movies. I just think they lost all the nonsense, all of the fun. They're so grim that they have to put in this prophecy and this make the Mad Hatter like the hero of the story with like I don't know, that whole like battle scene. And I hate Crispin Glover's character in this. He's super weird and it's just not fun. Like Alice in Wonderland is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be nonsense. It's supposed to be silly. It's supposed to be and this is just not. This is not fun to
Yes.
me.
No, absolutely, I agree. Yeah, we will get to those when we come to it. They're a little bit higher for me.
All right. So what do you have at 13?
13 is Cinderella.
Oh, interesting. Okay, well, that's our
Yes.
biggest difference then.
Oh,
I have that. Yeah, I have that pretty high.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
what's your 13 then?
My 13 is Maleficent.
Maleficent.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's higher for me as well. So let's cross that bridge when we come to
Good.
it.
Okay. What do you have at 12?
Number 12 is Maleficent, Mistress of Evil.
Yeah, so I have it at 10. So we're pretty close. So why don't we talk about it?
Sure.
Yeah, it's not a good movie by any stretch, but I do admire the moxie in it. It's like such a weird movie. And I do think visually it's pretty cool. Like there's some cool like sequences. I didn't go fresh on it, but it's so strange. I'm like, why did Disney release this? Like, what?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty movie. I think the makeup is killer. I
Yeah,
like
yeah,
I like the designs of all the elves. They look amazing. I
Mhm.
think they're cast well too. And I like all the like visual diversity where some of them look like they have butterfly wings or whatever, like and then, like sparkly and colorful. Like I love
Yeah.
it. That's great. With this whole thing. Like the biggest problem really, because for the most part it's kind of like, kind of like the whatever story. Like I thought it was like tolerable. Then it gets to the
Mhm.
finale, and there's this for people who haven't seen this movie, it's basically the bad people, like the bad humans, they kind of pretend like, oh, you know what, we're gonna be nice to you now, and we're gonna invite you to this church, to this wedding or whatever. And they had like some sort of like evil dwarf character played by Warwick Davis, who I enjoyed in this. But I think he invented like this thing which turns like powder or
Yeah, it's like
whatever.
this pollen kind of that like
Yeah, and
will
it
kill
turns
everybody.
it doesn't really kill them. It turns them into the objects they're based on in a way. So kind of like into
Oh, okay, yeah.
plants or whatever. And how they're doing it is basically they put it like in some sort of organ, and then they have like one of the bad guys play the organ, and they lock the church doors, and then the organ like shoots out those pollens
It's
and turns
insane.
them into like this death shower, this death rain, turns them back into like basically killing them. And I mean, I'm I'm German,
Sure.
and I have a big relation to the history of our country because this is what is
Sure.
taught in schools.
Yeah.
I had this like be beaten around my head like for years, because it's important that we learn this in schools, because it's important that this doesn't happen anymore. So immediately when this started, my mind flashed to, and I can't say this in any other way, concentration camps.
Yeah. No, it's definitely like I said in my review, I was like, oh, mass genocide for kids. Like, what? And that's why I couldn't go fresh on it, even though I was just sort of stunned by it. So it did like it elicited a reaction from me, which I kind of admire, I guess, in a way, but because Disney can just be, especially in these, can just be so flat and never like trying anything. But like I couldn't recommend the film by any means because
Yeah,
like,
but it
what?
was so
Like it,
it
it
was
totally was so weird. And it's not only do they have this genocide scene, they like then like 2 minutes later, they're like, there's like a happy wedding.
Yes, but outside we have like the elves battling the humans, and they're killing each other. And then in some way it gets resolved. I can't remember how.
I
And
really
then
think that
and then we're like,
somebody, yeah, I really think somebody at Disney was like, oh, Game of Thrones was cool. How can we make our own Game of Thrones? I've never watched Game of Thrones, but it just felt like sort of somebody that just like really wanted to make a dark fantasy, and Disney was like, okay, here's $200 million, go for
it certainly is comparable. I mean, they actually have one actor from Game of Thrones, at least one of
it.
them,
Uh-huh.
in
Oh
there.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
that kind of fits. But yes, I absolutely agree. It's also kind of like Red Wedding-ish.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
but like Game of Thrones at least was like tonally consistent.
Yeah.
And this is just, they're murdering each other in this big epic battle scene, and then like 2 minutes later, okay, let's have a wedding here. I think they didn't even clean up the dead yet.
They did.
It's so bizarre, and it struck me as so tasteless. And it also
Yeah.
like the
No, it
whole struct
is.
and the whole structure kind of struck me as, did AI actually like wrote this movie? Because it felt to me like so like beat for beat in a way where it feels like a first computer draft that hasn't been revisited in any way, and they just filmed it.
Yeah, I can see that. It's bizarre.
Yeah.
So my number 12 is Mulan. I just hated this movie.
Mm.
I really it has to have some visual nice visual sequences, some martial arts and stuff, but just talk about a movie that just does not understand the appeal of the original like at all. And it's always hard with these remakes because it's like when they just do a shot for shot, that sucks. But when they do something completely different, that also usually sucks. And so it's just
Not
really hard.
always.
It's not always.
It
I have some, but it's tough because then people say, well, you get mad when they do something when they do shot for shot, but then you get mad when they do some stuff that's different. And I'm like, yeah, because both of them can be bad. I it just depends, and I guess both of them can be good, but I don't know. I just hated so much the fact that they turned to this character who uses her ingenuity and her humanity, her love for her father to be scrappy and make it as a soldier. They turn her into this superhero and who has powers, and there's a witch, and
that like whole like superpowers thing, that's also the aspect I dislike about it. It's higher for me, and we will come to
yeah.
it when we get
Okay,
there. But
sounds
that
good.
is basically, I think that might be like my actual like biggest gripe with the movie.
Yeah.
And other than
There's
that,
oh,
I
you
might
didn't
be
get
more
like that.
positive on it.
That was the whole appeal of Mulan, at least for me, was seeing her uh, like I love the whole cutting hair sequence in Mulan. I love her, you know, figuring out the army by herself. And I don't know, I just felt like, boy, they had the opportunity to do something really cool. They had all the pieces there. They really
Yes.
flubbed it. They really flubbed it for me.
Uh,
So what do you have at 11?
my 11 is Alice in Wonderland.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, because I went to this in the cinema because I was a huge Tim Burton nut.
Mm-hmm.
And also like Johnny Depp, not like Danny Elfman, not everything,
Yeah,
everything Tim Burton did. I was like,
sure.
and I was positive on it when I saw it, because I was like, oh yeah, 3D and cinema and Tim Burton, whatever. And afterwards, I was kind of like, no, this is actually one of Tim Burton's worst movies.
Yeah,
and,
yeah, I get
and
that.
it's and it's not technically a remake. It's a sequel to the original, but they kind of come to that kind of late in the
Mm-hmm.
in the movie. Like they hint at it
Yeah,
every now and then, but then it turns out, okay, this is actually like taking place years later, blah blah blah, whatever. Yeah, it's still not the real problem is, and the biggest offense this remake or whatever does is Tim Burton's style. Tim Burton's movies usually they have like a very loose attitude to them when it comes to story, where it's kind of like, oh yeah, the main characters they do this and do this. They're very like character driven, but not very story driven movies. They don't always have the strongest scripts.
mm-hmm.
And so you would think that a story like Alice in Wonderland would be perfect because it has this aspect about it where it's kind of like, oh, this character stumbles into this kind of thing, and this happens, and then this kind of thing, and she meets another character, and then this happens, and it's just madness and it's kookiness and all of that. And you would think, oh, he's like the perfect guy. And then they give this a story,
Yeah,
a
yeah.
real story, and not only that, because it's the same writer of the original Beauty and the Beast and like several other Disney older like Disney movies. It's like it's so by the numbers in terms of like rebellion and fighting, and like all these characters just acting way too seriously, and when
Yeah.
it's like at
No
not the
fun.
way,
No
yeah,
fun.
not fun exactly. Like, sometimes it kind of like springs up, like sometimes
Mm-hmm.
what I like the cast pretty much all the way through, like I think they're cast well for what they are, like especially like Matt Lucas as Tweedledum and Tweedledee. I think that's a good choice, and all
Mm.
the people who do
Yeah,
voices.
Alan Rickman, he's good.
Yes, absolutely. Like
Yeah,
all that stuff, I think
that's
really
true.
works. I think visually it's kind of but whatever. And you can also tell that Tim Burton, he likes it way more when there's actually like graspable sets, and this is
Mm-hmm.
just like ugly green screen nightmare for the most part. I think Johnny Depp can be fun, but
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I like it when he kind of switches like to the sort of like darker personality he has, and how he just switches into like Scottish for some reason. I think some of that is actually kind of neat,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still very like disappointing by the numbers, like rebellion fantasy movie, which has like
Mm-hmm.
some scenes that are kind of enjoyable, but still like
Yeah.
it's not really worth anything. And also, of course, the
Yeah.
Danny Elfman score is spectacular. I heard that performed live actually, when he did like his tour, and I heard that live, and I was able to
Mm-hmm.
meet him backstage and shake his hand and all of that, and that was really awesome. But everything else, it's not that good.
Yeah. Well, my number 11, and I know a lot of people have this higher, but my number 11 is Christopher Robin.
Hmm.
I just can't believe that they would make a Winnie the Pooh movie that is this like grim and sad and depressing. And I just feel like that's the last thing that I want when I mean, because I feel like Winnie the Pooh is for like very little children, and it's so sweet and lovely, and I love those films, those animated films. And to have this, one of my least favorite tropes in movies is the bad father because he works so hard and he needs to be redeemed, like the workaholic father archetype. Like it worked in Mary Poppins, it's almost never worked again. And I just felt like they were portraying Christopher Robin as this like terrible person because like literally everybody else in his place is getting fired. Like he could lose his job. And I'm like, he's not a bad person. Like he's just like he's trying to keep his family, like secure. Um and it does have some nice, I like the aesthetic choices,
Hmm.
but I just really hate that story. And I just felt like it was so depressing, and I don't want that in my Winnie the Pooh
That's
movie.
that's absolutely fair. It's higher for me,
Hmm.
and we will get to that one
Yeah.
soon.
So what do you have at 10?
Number 10 is Alice Through the Looking Glass.
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I place it higher than the original because one, it's not a Tim Burton movie, and it's kind of like I just found it weird when why are you doing a sequel this late?
Yeah,
It
that
felt
was weird.
very, very strange for me. The reason I put it also higher is because I think it's slightly better than the first one because it feels much more like an actual like Wonderland movie because it has much more like a kooky weirdness about it.
Mhm.
And what really elevates it, I think, is Sacha Baron Cohen.
Mhm.
I think he's really fun as time, and all the bad puns they do, I kind of enjoy that. And
I
I,
haven't
I,
seen it in a long. I mean, I haven't seen it since it came out, so that's fair. I just was like, why? Why are they answering this question about the queen? What?
yeah, that's really dumb. They also answer another question. They answer like why it's always like short before tea time, like
Yeah.
always like 5 minutes
And
before tea.
you're
But I
supposed
think
to
that
buy that
twist,
there's like this huge bond between the Hatter and Alice, and I'm like, I I never really felt that they were like that close, that she's
it,
gonna do
it feels
this.
really. They hint at that in the first one as well. And it feels really creepy,
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
really weird. Yeah, that's
But
and
I can see what you're saying.
yeah, they kind of
I was
emphasize. And this one, I think visually it kind of looks nicer. It has more color
Mhm.
to it.
Mm.
I think the effects are not necessarily like better, but I think they come up with like some fun designs.
Mm.
And I think the cast, like Johnny Depp, kind of seems, yeah, in and out, but I think I still think there are like some
What,
fun
what about those
sequences.
vegetable people? You remember that?
I mean, they're clearly like inspired by that painting, whose
Yeah.
painter's name I can't remember,
Yeah.
but that's kind of like a fun, workable design.
I was
And
like, there's broccoli people. What is
yes,
happening?
I think some of its stuff is kind of,
Yeah.
some of the stuff is kind of neat. Like it's still like the story is blah, whatever, but
Yeah.
still they have like some of those sequences which are kind of like, um, weird and kooky and
Yeah.
feel like it's in keeping with the concept of F. Wonderland much more than the Tim Burton film was.
Mm.
Hey, this is David from the Piecing It Together podcast, a podcast about movies and the movies that inspire them. For over 4 years each week, a guest and I take a look at a new movie through the lens of what other movies we think were either an influence or connect in some other way. It's a fun, unique way to discuss films that leads to a great list of other movies to check out that either explore the same themes and ideas or maybe utilize similar filmmaking techniques. Including special episodes in our side series that twist the format, we've done over 200 episodes, so there's bound to be one on a film you've been thinking about and want to dig deeper into. So check us out on all the major podcasting apps and at piecingpod.com.
Yeah. Well, I have missed Maleficent too in as number 10 just for the moxie of it, just because I thought it was so weird. But yeah. So what do you have at 9?
My number 9 is The Little Mermaid.
Okay, this is new. You just watched it for this episode, so thank you.
Absolutely, yeah. And I didn't plan to like ever watch it, but because I'm a nice guy and I wanted to have like the full perspective of all of his remakes, I watched it and it was better than I expected. It wasn't as visually ugly as I anticipated, because I think Rob Marshall is a horribly uninspired director. And if this one looked slightly better than I anticipated, and and I don't think this remake really, it's a by the numbers remake, which doesn't really do like any. That kind of annoyed me that it didn't really do anything like creative. It did kind of remind me of a Lion King, where it's just kind of like it's the original again, but everything just takes much longer. But it's not as bad as the Lion King, because if this was the first version,
it tries to do some things different, like it expands Eric's character, and
that's nice enough, but it's still like I think it's still unnecessary. But in my opinion, if this was like the first version of a story a kid saw, I don't think it would do any harm. I think we would still enjoy it for what it is, and that's fine. I don't have a lot we will maybe say more about it when we come to the newer ranking, but I don't have that many problems with it, really.
Well, my number 9 is where I have Aladdin. I did not go fresh on this, but I was pretty close. I was right on the edge when it came out, because I think overall it's energetic and fun, but I think, like, in no world would I ever watch this over the original. It is, I mean, not even close, but I do think that Will Smith is a pretty good genie, pretty energetic, pretty fun. I like the guy that what's his name? Mena Masood. He's, I think, pretty charming. I like Naomi Scott as Jasmine. She's got a good singing voice. They've all got pretty good singing voices. The choreography is pretty fun. Yeah, I mean, I think that like Jafar is terrible.
Oh,
that doesn't work at all.
Absolutely. I think he's not like, and not like anything against the actor, but it's just the wrong actor, the wrong performance of his role. Yes.
Yeah, and I think I like the new song that they added for Jasmine, and I like the singing of it. I think she's a good singer, but it doesn't fit, I don't think, with the rest of the movie to all of a sudden have this like everything pause and have this. You can just tell it's not an Ashman Rice Menken song. It just doesn't feel like it doesn't fit, with the rest of the songs.
It also doesn't. It also not a good placement when it's just like I won't stay silent.
It stops all the energy of what's going on.
That too, and then also like it doesn't. The song doesn't matter because she's singing this whole like big like empowerment statement, and after that is basically take her away, whatever.
Yeah. And so, and one thing I noticed, I noticed this when Little Mermaid came out. I was thinking about it, that one of the things that's interesting about these remakes is that almost in every case, the Disney version of updating it, quote unquote, is to remove most of the humor from the animated film.
Yeah,
As
that's
much as possible, they'll keep in something they just absolutely have to keep. Like they have to keep Hakuna Matata. They have to keep, like, but as much as they can, like you think about Ursula, all of her funny lines are gone. They obviously are going to remove the chef. We knew that. But they do. You think about Jungle Book, like most of the humor is gone. Most of the funny
and
is gone. And it's
they
like a
replace
dark.
they replace it with like other jokes, but it's still
Yeah.
they take some of it out. You're
Pretty much every
absolutely
single
right.
one of these. I mean, certainly like I said, with Alice in Wonderland, both of those, all the humor is gone. Beauty and the Beast, we've got this plague thing. We've got this, most of the humor, and they make Gaston more serious, like more, this war hero, and like that's their idea of sort of like modernizing, is to like and certainly with Peter Pan and Wendy, which we're talking next, that's their sort of solution, I think, in a lot of these movies, is to make it serious, make it a drama.
Yes, yeah.
And Cruella, all the humor gone.
I mean, that also isn't like a remake per se.
Yeah.
And it's a different kind of humor sometimes, but we'll get to that.
But anyway, that's just you certainly see that with Aladdin. I mean, so they're going very serious. They have some jokes, but it's just, you would never describe this remake as a comedy, which I think you could kind of describe the original as a comedy.
Oh yeah. I mean, it has like comedic elements, and absolutely, I do. Yeah, but I mean, like
Maleficent, all the humor with the fairies is all gone. Like it's just Mulan. They get rid of Mushu, so they get rid of most of the jokes. Like that's just their kind of thing. Like certainly Christopher Robin, like most of the humor is gone. So that's.
I absolutely get all of that points. I mean, it's on my number 14 because it was also like, this remake is absolutely necessary. I really liked Will Smith's take on the role. I thought it was fun. I liked some of the musical staging, but some of it also felt like really uninspired. The whole like love interest genie thing was kind of like, why? That Jafar wasn't good. Like the whole finale sucked, because the finale in the original is like so good, when he like turns into a snake and does all of these magic tricks, and here it's just like people standing there, and it's like a chase with a giant parrot.
That's true.
And why would you change the parrot? Why would you even hire like the ultimate basically Disney bitch now, which is what's his name again? Wash from Serenity, the Firefly.
For which one?
He's the guy who voices like the parrot, who voices like one character in every Disney movie since.
Alan Tudyk.
Alan Tudyk, yeah.
And
why would you get him and just act like a generic parrot? Like, why? I get that you can't replace someone like Gilbert Gottfried, but why are you just making him like? Then just don't have him talk at all.
You're absolutely right about that.
So stupid. It's really, really stupid. Yeah, and that really sucked, and you can't tell it's a Guy Ritchie movie at all. It's absolutely like visually it's not that great, but some jokes work. It has some energy here and there. So, but it's pretty low on my list for several reasons.
That makes sense. Well, next up for me, number 8 for me is Peter Pan and Wendy, and I wrote in my review, I said that. That it was a by the books, perfectly enjoyable Peter Pan adaptation, well made, sweet, but nothing more. So it was a very lukewarm review. I haven't thought about it at all since. It was totally unmemorable, and I was disappointed because I was expecting more from David Lowery, because he's such an interesting director, and because I like Pete's Dragon. You'll see that where that's coming up, but I was expecting more from him. I was expecting it to be special and interesting. And this was just like, to me, it was like just a totally basic run-of-the-mill Peter Pan movie that we could have gotten from any studio.
It was like from any director as well.
Yeah.
That's why it's so low on my list. That's why it's at 15. Yeah, because I watched it, and I for review purposes as well, and I thought it was just completely unremarkable in almost every. I liked the casting of the kids, also like of the like lost kids, because it's not just all boys anymore. I liked those kids a lot. but overall, like I thought
Like
like
Jude Law was fun. He was fine.
kind of, but it's always like kind of like halfway there with
Mhm.
everyone. Just kind of like,
Yeah.
yeah, this characterization of Wendy Leia, yeah, all right, but it's also just kind of like halfway there.
But
Like the designs of the
yeah.
pirates, like everything, it didn't really come together for me visually. Like everything looked
Yeah.
really. It kind of had like it reminded me visually a lot of the Where the Wild Things Are movie,
Mhm.
the live action thing they did, but that
Yeah.
one actually
I
that
love
is
that
much more,
movie.
yeah, that one is much more purposeful, and this one reminded me a lot
Yeah.
of that, like visually and also tonally. But overall, like I thought the score felt like autopilot. It was
Mm.
just like so like
Yeah.
unmemorably like twee orchestral, and it's
Yeah.
just and what really bugged me was because I really liked the actress they got for Tinkerbell. I thought she was like she looked really lovely, but then they
Mhm.
just removed any character and just made her like a smiling fairy.
Yeah, this
And
has been if there was a review from 2023 that I've considered like should I change that to rotten? This has been the one probably because I was very on the fence when I reviewed it. I was like it's passable, it's okay, but I've kind of been thinking it's like is that good enough? I don't know, but I was disappointed because I just expected better from David Lowery. So I don't know what happened with this one. It feels like somehow it got lost and but
yeah,
yeah,
it
it's too
it
bad.
really feels like
It's too bad.
it's more lost than the lost children in this.
So what do you have at 8?
My number 8 is Cruella,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and I guess it's higher for you. So
Yeah, I
let's
have it at 5.
yeah, so let's wait for that one. What's your number 8
Mm-hmm.
then?
Oh wait, my 8 is Peter Pan and Wendy.
Oh yeah,
So
exactly. So number
so what about 7 for you?
my number 7 is Dumbo.
Same with me. Same with me.
Nice.
Yeah.
My lucky number 7.
Yeah.
Um so yeah, this I know this remake like made some people like depressed and whatever, and I think it's tonally very weird in terms of how it came out around the time where Disney was acquiring Fox.
Uh-huh.
And this whole movie is basically like a commentary on, oh, isn't like this big corporation bad because it buys up this like circus and makes it into this extravaganza corporate thing. And it's
Yeah.
like how tone deaf are these executives, but that's also kind of it kind of like has the Mistress of Evil effect for me. It's kind of, that's why I kind of like enjoy it because it's
Same.
so tonally strange. And I thought like it's not like visually the best, but I think it's much more Tim Burton-y than Alice in Wonderland, for example. And I
Yeah.
really enjoyed the score. I thought Danny Elfman really outdid himself with this one. I thought that was really neat. I liked. I thought the kids were really bland, but I liked the rest of the cast, apart from the late Alan Arkin, which he just looks like he doesn't know who he is.
Mm-hmm.
But I liked Michael Keaton, I liked Danny DeVito. It was nice that he was in a Tim Burton film again. Like overall, I don't have a lot to say other than it's kind of like, it expands it at points where it was kind of like, yeah, it's neat. And
Yeah.
it's kind of like a nice update in a way. It's still like it's very gloomy, it's kind of grim, but for like Tim Burton Dumbo remake, it could be worse.
Yeah. Well, so this movie, as critics, one thing that I try to separate my own life experience from the movie itself because that just doesn't feel fair, like I try to be as objective as I can with the film, but in this case, it was impossible to do so because when I saw this movie, I had just barely that morning gotten this death threat sent to me over my Shazam review, and that they were going to kill everybody in my family, and they were going to get the next screening. They were going to shoot everybody, and so I had to notify Warner Brothers, and I had to notify the screening company, and it was just a horrible experience. And I literally went from like dealing with all of that to seeing this movie, and I found it like really comforting, and like just the presence of Dumbo so sweet and so comforting. And so I've never watched it again, so I can't say
Same.
what I would think now, but it was a very like comforting movie at that moment, and I got to give it some credit for that. And I do think it is, I agree with you, I think it's extremely weird not only to have Disney make a movie about a big bad company buying a smaller company, but their amusement park is like company, you know, like a bigger amusement park. Like that to me was just like,
It's really strange.
how did Tim Burton sell this to that? Like what?
It's really interesting. Yeah.
So I found it kind of interesting on that level, and just the comforting of that character. I thought that they did a very good job of creating a really sweet Dumbo, and I thought he looked very, very, very sweet. And
yeah, that's fair.
you know,
Like it wasn't, the effect didn't really work for me, but it's still, I thought it was cute when he
very
flies for
cute.
the first time. That actually made me tear up because it was just like so emotional, and the
Yeah,
music was weeping, and I thought all of it was nice, and
yeah,
I thought the ending was really nice as well. So yeah,
yeah. So
overall,
what did you have for number 6?
okay, this might anger some people. My number 6 is Mulan.
Oh, okay. Uh-huh.
Let me tell you that the original Mulan might be the first movie I've ever seen in the theater. At least
Oh, okay.
it's the first theater visit I can vividly remember. I
Uh-huh.
went there with one of my aunts, and it was awesome. Like, it was so epic.
Yeah.
That movie
I
turned
love
me
that
into a fan of
movie.
swords, actually. And I still am. It's an amazing movie. And this one, I was kind of looking forward to the to this remake because of the director, because it was kind of like, okay, this could be interesting, and also because of the composer, because Harry Gregson Williams is one of my favorite composers, and I was curious to see what he would do. And I also was expecting, okay, they're probably gonna kind of like update this for a Chinese audience, and that makes sense because I know
Yeah.
that the Chinese don't really like the Disney version of the story, and I know it's based on like this real folklore thing, and they're gonna make it closer to that. And I thought, okay, this could be interesting, and I actually thought it was interesting, but it wasn't all the way there. I didn't really have a problem with the look. I didn't have a problem with the performances. I thought the action was fun. I thought the music was great, apart from Harry Williams clearly rips himself off from the Prince of Persia score, because he gives the bad guys, he gives them the exact same theme and instrumentation. But I still thought it was overall really cool. The one problem I had was the whole superhero aspect, because that robs her
Yeah.
of kind of like the accomplishment angle. And I get it, that is also kind of like the cheese stuff. That's also like a cultural thing. That's a big thing they do in the third Kung Fu Panda movie, but I think there they do it better. And
Yeah, they're trying to get into like the wuxia kind of tradition
yes,
and
and
things.
I liked the wuxia aspect of it, and I didn't think it was like choreographed all too badly. I thought that all worked. It's still kind of bland at points. It's still
Mm.
and like I said, it's not all the way there. But I just, as like a basic action movie which has elements of another movie I like, I thought it was absolutely passable.
I can
And
see that.
that's why it's so high on my
Ringing
list.
endorsement, absolutely passable.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I
Yes.
get
It
it. I
doesn't
get
it
it.
doesn't do any harm. I
I
wouldn't
get it.
choose it over the original when I have kids and I would show them, but I also wouldn't
Yeah.
lock this away. It's kind of
Right.
like, oh, well, if you want to see a slightly more, I don't know, like adult version, yeah, give this one a
Mhm.
try, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies.
6 is where I have Lady and the Tramp.
That's my number 5.
Okay. Yeah. This I thought was cute. I liked the fact they used real dogs.
Mostly.
And there's some CGI, but they also used some real dogs. And
Yeah.
they were cute. And I liked the fact that, they captured most of the the feel of the original. I didn't like the way that they had Aunt Sarah. I didn't like that.
Didn't
I
have that much of a problem with that.
I can't remember most anything else about the movie, but I remember just thinking, oh, it looks nice. It was cute. I like the dogs. There
That's
you go.
pretty much my summation as well, because I didn't grow up with the original. We watched that later, and we kind of felt sorry because it's actually a really cute movie. And I watched this one also in preparation. This was one of the ones I didn't see beforehand. And so I watched this one. I was really surprised by the fact that it's very close to the original, almost like pretty much beat for beat. They just fleshed some stuff out more. But this was one of those cases where it didn't really bother me all that much. Where it was kind of like, okay, this is just an alternate version of the original, and it's absolutely fine. And you can tell that, it's done by an animation director, and like his first live action thing, I think. And you could kind of feel like the enthusiasm behind the camera, and kind of like, oh, I'm gonna make this, there's a lot of energy behind like the camera moves and all of that. And I think the stuff with the dogs mostly works. The CGI stuff really took me out of it a lot. But I thought the voices were fine. That stuff was all good. I really liked the live action, the actors as well. I thought it was sweet. I thought it was expanded nicely. I liked the whole like world and the casting, all of that stuff. I liked the new music they did. I actually liked the new Cat song. I thought that one was kind of catchy, because I was thinking, are you just gonna cut this part out because we're absolutely not gonna do the racist cats? Even though I think in the original that song is also pretty fun, but I can absolutely see why that song's problematic. But I thought they updated it in a very fun way.
Well, in the original, the weirdest part is they built up these cats as the villains, right? And then they sing their song, and then you basically never hear from them again. The rat is the villain in the end of the movie. The rat is the thing they're all scared of, not the cats, which I think is kind of strange.
That's also one of the things they actually set up in this one, and they don't set it up in the original, I think.
Yeah.
The rat. But here they actually tease it. And I thought that was actually, kind of, okay, yeah, that's well done, because it kind of comes out of nowhere in the original. Overall, I thought it was fine and cute and absolutely inoffensive.
Yeah. Well, my number 5 is where I have Cruella. And I thought it was fun enough if I completely divorce it from from having to be a prequel. If it could just be like a fan fiction of Cruella, that's kind of how I look at it. Because if you're thinking about, this is the woman that is going to want to skin 100 puppies, then 101 puppies, then it just doesn't make sense, and it's bizarre. But if you're just, again, is like fan fiction of Cruella, I think that Emma Stone and Emma Thompson are having a good time. They're camping it up. The fashion's pretty good. It's basically like a heist movie. But the only problem is that it basically repeats the same plot over and over and over again. But I had enough fun elements that I gave it a recommendation. I think I gave it
that's
6
fine.
out of 10.
I mean, I have it at number 8, which would still be like your fresh rating, basically.
Yeah.
But it's still like, when I reviewed it, I was really confused by who is this for?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't feel
fair.
like it. I was really confused by who are they making this for? Because I can't grasp the demographic here at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not made for kids, that's for sure.
No,
it's made for
also,
like kind of nostalgic adults who want something sort of edgy, and I guess
I think it's made for like fan fiction goths, basically.
Yeah.
Like that's fan fiction emo kids, whatever. Like, and I don't mean this in a degrading way. That's just the vibe I get from it.
Yeah,
it's basically like a goth Devil Wears Prada in a way. It's really like, I know, like, and also, of course, like, I made comparisons to stuff like Birds of Prey. It clearly has some elements of that one. And performances all fine. I think visually it's sometimes kind of dark. I thought it was absolutely hilarious that her original motivation is because that's something that's just straight up out of parody, where it's like, Dalmatians killed my mother.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
That's just so stupid and it's so funny.
Yeah.
But overall, I thought it was just I saw it that one time. I've forgotten most of it, and I don't
Yeah,
need to
agreed.
see it ever again. Like it's it's just kind of like a nothing movie to me that didn't leave any lasting impressions.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Let's see. What did you have at 5?
Meine favorite was Lady and the Tramp, so
Oh, okay.
we already
Okay. Yeah.
talked about that one.
Okay. So what do you have at 4?
My 4 is The Jungle Book.
Same.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
same. Yeah, yeah.
And the thing with The Jungle Book is that might be like one of the big defining kids movies for me, because we used to watch that
Okay.
over and over again. It's a very beloved classic over here in Germany, actually. Like it's
Oh,
much more
interesting.
beloved over here than in America or anywhere else in the world, because they took kind of like liberties with the songs in a way, where they did like some liberties with the lyrics and all of that. It just has a very, very fun dub. And overall, like it's
Interesting.
one of those movies where we watch it over and over again, and just later on we watch the second half as Shere Khan shows up, because originally that scared us. But
Yeah.
the original very much burnt into my head. I still like to watch it. I mean, it's from that like cheaper era of Disney where we were in trouble, and it's one of it's from the era of like Wolfgang Reitermann, where he basically directed every Disney movie for over a decade, and so everything felt kind of like tonally kind of samey. And that's the stuff I grew up with, basically, in terms of Disney. And I think that one is just I think it's so much fun. And this remake, I was very skeptical when I went in. And I was pleasantly surprised, because I thought it was an interesting mixture of the original and also the more adult stuff from the books. It doesn't always gel very well. Like whenever they come back to the original material in terms of the songs, where it's just kind of like, why are they singing this now? Like this feels really weird. But I thought the casting was really good. From the animals and all of that. I really liked the boy who played Mowgli. Like I thought visually it was really striking. I really liked all that stuff. It was, the new music worked. The action scenes, like I thought everybody in terms of animal casting like did a really good job, and it won the visual effects Oscar, I think, rightly so.
Yeah.
Because that was really well done, and overall, I just thought it was a nice kind of like updated version. It's not like, it's not the same movie again. It has some of the same things, but we've seen different versions of a Jungle Book, and this one was just kind of like also another version of a Jungle Book, but I thought it was actually pretty neat.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's interesting you say that about Germany, because when I was 14, I took a trip to Europe with my dad, and we were in the Alsace region of France, so almost in Germany. And they were having a Bastille Day celebration, and there was this band there, and the band sang there's two mains, the bare necessities and I Want to Be Like You, as part of their thing. And we got their CD, we bought it. And so I'll have a lot of memories of listening to this French version of this, it was in English, but French accents and stuff. So it's interesting you say that it's really popular there, because it would make sense why they had that in their band. But anyway, it's a favorite. Jungle Book, the original, is a favorite of my dad's. It's one we watched quite a bit. It's one I really enjoy. And this is an example of like turning everything really serious for the most part.
Yes.
It's all but I do think that visually it was very impressive. I think it works better than in The Lion King. You're not asking these characters, these animal characters, to emote in the same way that they're asking in Lion King. You at least have one human to kind of interact with, and I think that helps a lot. I do prefer the ending of this movie to the ending of the original. I really don't like the girl getting water that transfixed just after Baloo's made this like incredible sacrifice for Mowgli, and
I get that. Yeah.
One look from this girl, he gets hypnotized, and so I've never liked that ending. And then in this, I just think they give him like a way more empowered, interesting, better ending, and so I like that. So that's enough, just that stuff alone, to get it to number 4.
Yeah, pretty much agree. And also, like, whosever idea it was to give Christopher Walken that monkey role was absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh, doopy doo.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be like you. It's
Ginortificus or whatever. So what do you have at, let's see, where are you at? If you
I
did
mean,
four?
it's number 4. Yeah, we
Oh
both
wait,
had
we
this as
both
number
had the same
4.
four. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you have at 3?
Okay, this is gonna turn some heads. My number 3 is Pete's Dragon.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I mean, top 3, so at least that.
Yeah, no, it's
And
high.
I never saw the original. Also didn't do it as a as a preparation for this one, because I don't know, because it's just, I know that it's so far off
Yeah.
that why
Name
even bother?
only. Really, name only.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think it's it's a story wise, it's something you've seen like 1,000 times before. It's just that story told pretty well,
Yeah.
in my opinion, and it's nothing more, nothing less.
Yeah.
It's this standard like boy meets monster, and
Yeah.
he's kind of like estranged, and then this family tries to take care of him, and then we find this monster, let's see if we can capitalize on it, and blah 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 blah, that needs to escape, and all that stuff. And I think it's done absolutely well, hits all the right beats. It's not too adult for kids, but it still has some adult stuff in there to make it interesting. It's absolutely a solid, cool film. It's just not my favorite of this.
Yeah. Well, my number 3 is where I have The Little Mermaid. I know this is shocker, because it was a million times better than I thought it was going to be, because I thought it looked like trash. But and most of the stuff that I thought was going to be bad was bad. Like the underwater world looked terrible. The scuttlebutt is just absolutely atrocious. A lot of the stuff with Ursula I hated, but I loved her. I thought that she was just lovely in the role. That's what I'm saying. If they had gotten a good singer for Belle, that would have made a huge, for me, in what I enjoy. And I thought Hallie was lovely in the role. I thought she was warm and personable, and I thought that her singing was beautiful. I loved her voice. And so for what I value, and what I go to see a movie like this for, that made a big difference to me. And then I thought that I loved Eric. I thought he was so charming and hunky and lovely. And I thought they had incredible chemistry. I thought that they really worked well together. And if I was Disney, I would have sold this movie on their chemistry and as basically like a romantic comedy. They were so good together, I thought. And so all the new stuff in developing his character, it really worked for me because I just liked them so much. I liked him so much. I liked them so much. And so all the stuff that I didn't like, I was able to ignore because I just liked that element so much that I didn't really care that much, that I thought her costumes were strange. There were just a lot of little things where I was like, what? Why did they do that? But I thought that they nailed it with the two of them, and that was the most important thing to me. And so it made it to number 3.
I agree with most of those points. I mean, it was my number 9.
Yeah,
and,
pretty high.
It's not like I have like that strong of a connection with the original, but it's still it's a very important movie in Disney's history, and it's done very well in my opinion, and it's really really cute. And this one has, I absolutely adored her in the role as well. I thought she was wonderful, powerhouse of a voice. Incredible how she did that. And all the underwater stuff, it could have looked worse in some points. Like I actually thought like they were integrated well. It's just like the whole like full animated stuff that look all that good. I thought, Melissa McCarthy, she was fine, and I don't have anything against her, but she also didn't bring really any menace to it. There was like one comedic thing she had.
They took out all the funny. Like, I don't understand why you hire Melissa McCarthy for this role, and then you take out all the jokes. She was just menacing. She was just scary.
There was one funny joke where she's looking for some sort of ingredient, and she's kind of like flipping out like, where is it? But found it. With kind of like well timed, but all the rest, like the
But she
animal
would have been so
designs.
good being like body language, or like some of the hilarious moments in Poor Unfortunate Souls that they got rid of. And you could really tell that this is where what really made me start thinking and realizing that they take out all the humor is if you think about the beginning of this movie when they're like the mermaid tears, like the quote at the beginning from the original
I remember.
story. And I'm like, oh, see, they thought that would make it better, and it does.
Yes,
I don't know. It's weird.
that's really a
But
problem.
I ended up seeing it 3 times because I
That's
kept
fine.
going with different people because I was like, this is, I don't know. I enjoyed it. And
The problem I had with this one, I mean, one, I think it's too long. Some of the
that's
stuff,
true.
especially like the relationship stuff, Eric stuff they fleshed out, I thought like, okay, this is nice, this is good, and I really liked him as well. I liked his song too. I thought like everywhere else it could feel like the Lin-Manuel Miranda-ness, and I think
Yep.
he's really overused these days, and I don't have anything against him. But he's still is like the flavor of a month, and it kind of gets annoying.
Yeah, that's
And
fair.
like the whole like scuttlebutt, like I've seen
Yeah.
Aquafina in other voice roles where she has been much better than in this. And
yeah, I'm hoping that Scuttlebutt is like his low point. He'll realize. Like,
I mean, can it get any worse?
I
I'm not
don't
quite
think
sure.
so.
It like all the like creature designs were really bad, like just devoid of any personality. And it reminded me of a Lion King in a bad way, where it feels like everything is kind of like done so safely and by the numbers.
Yeah.
Because it hits the same beats, and that especially hit me in the finale, where they do the exact same. At least they don't do it like in Aladdin, where they really just take everything out of that finale, what made it special. No, they do the exact same thing where she grows big, but they don't do anything beyond that, and her death scene is way too quick. And it just and that makes it really boring and dull. And I thought, like, couldn't you have done it like a little bit more interestingly in a way, because and it's Rob Marshall, and
and everything's kind of hard to make out, and it was pretty much just the stuff with Ariel and Eric on land that won me over to this movie.
All that stuff, also like how she has like her inner monologue sometimes and only when she's singing, and I thought that was nicely done. And it gave her more to do in terms of like singing parts. I thought that was all fine. But everything else, it was kind of like whatever. But it's still like I said, if a kid saw this version for the first time, it won't do any harm. But I still think the animated one is better. But this one it had the benefit of being much better than I
low expectations. It helped. I have to say, if I was including Mary Poppins Returns, I would put it here. I do love it. I think maybe I actually think Rob Marshall's a little underrated, because I really enjoyed most of his movies, and I really enjoyed this. I thought I liked all the new songs. I liked some people said it was too samey of the original, and I guess I could see that, but I don't know. I thought it had a nice heart to it. I liked the performances. I liked the singing. So I thought it had that sort of old Main Street kind of charm. Like, it seemed like to me that this was a movie that Walt would have loved. And I know he loved the original. So that's where I would. But what do you have at 2?
My number 2 is Christopher Robin.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I actually really liked it for all the reasons you didn't like it in a way. I mean, you also said you liked the visual stuff and all of it. I really like that stuff. I didn't think it was like too gloomy. Like, sometimes it is, but I really liked it how they kind of built the sense of dread, and then it's just a very like simple problem where it's like, oh, the wind is making that strange noise, and that felt very in tone with some problem they would come across in a Winnie the Pooh story. I like that stuff, and I didn't think it was like too depressing. Like, they kind of give him like PTSD and all of that stuff, and it's like, all right. But I think, like, especially in the third act, it really comes to that like fun stuff where it's like chase sequences, and I like the voices of all of the animal characters, and I like the outcome overall. I like the casting. The music is really nice. like overall, I just thought it was like
Mhm.
for this like Christopher Robin, you know, it was sequel basically. It's basically the Hook version of Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah. I'm not a big
And
fan of Hook.
okay, yeah, because I am actually. I actually really like that movie. I think it's an underrated Spielberg movie. And
Yeah.
this kind of hit the same notes.
Again,
And
another movie with the overworked, the workaholic dad that has to get reformed. So it's just bad. I think it's just one of those. Everybody has those
yes,
storylines that you don't
that's
love.
that's absolutely fine. Like I have a pet peeve with other stories certainly, and sometimes
Yeah.
that get annoying as well. But in this one, I thought it was all like fine, and I actually really I like the whole atmosphere. It kind of made me teary eyed a little bit, and overall, I just thought it was fun and interesting. I might even own it on Blu-ray. I'm not quite sure,
Mm-hmm.
but I actually think I have it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see why. So my number 2 is Cinderella.
Ah,
And
yes.
I do have an affinity for Cinderella retellings. One of the very first things I did on my channel is I did a whole series of all different versions of Cinderella. And I
Ah,
do love the original 1950s animated classic, of course, but I love lots of different versions of Cinderella. And so I guess I'm not as like 100% tied to the Disney version. Like I love Ever After, and I love the Glass Slipper and the Rose, and I love the Glass Slipper, and I love I mean, I love Cinderella. And there's something about that story of hope, and that I just always have been, ever since I was a little girl, I've always been, kind of drawn to, and I've always enjoyed. And I like Cinderella's story with Jennifer Coolidge as the wicked stepmother. She's hilarious.
oh yeah.
So it's one of those stories that's pretty hard to do wrong for me. I mean,
Yes.
I even like Cinderella 3. Cinderella 2 we don't talk about, but Cinderella 3 is one of the better of the Disney cheapquels. It has a pretty creative story and is pretty good. And so for this one, I enjoyed it. I thought it tried to flesh out the evil stepmother's story a little bit, but not in a way that was annoying. I thought it made sense for her character, and that you get a little bit more time with the prince and Cinderella and
Which
their
is necessary,
relationship,
and
which is
that an
nice.
aspect I liked as well. Yes.
I liked the whole idea of kindness and courage. And so often our female heroines are these girl bosses and these tough, you don't usually get the kinder, softer, powerful, version of power, that a more elegant, softer, sweeter, that can be strong too.
Mhm.
So I like that in this character. First I was like, oh, I don't like this dress. But then when they actually explained that it was her mother's dress, and so then it kind of made more sense in the story. And so then there was like purposeful, the change of the dress, which I liked. I liked like the little nods to the original without, like her sort of humming Sing Sweet Nightingale, and things like that, without it being like an outright musical or an outright copy. And so, yeah, I mean, wouldn't say this is like my favorite version of Cinderella, but I think it's a like competent, well-made, entertaining version of Cinderella. I like Lily James. So yeah,
Yeah.
Kate Blanchett.
No problem with it. I thought it fun. I found it funny that there were like 2 Downton Abbey cast members in this. Lily James and also one of her stepsisters.
Oh, right. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah,
So
fun
I was kind of
costumes
like,
throughout.
oh yeah, sure.
Sandy
Like
Duncan, you can't go wrong with her.
I think visually it's pretty nice. I mean it's on my number 13 because I actually also watched the original for the first time in preparation for this podcast.
Oh,
And I had never seen it before, and it
have you
really
never
did.
seen the original?
Absolutely not. No.
Oh, wow.
I just
Okay.
thought it just
Interesting.
I just never really cared that much. It was kind
Uh-huh.
of like, yeah, I know the story. Like, what can Disney add really?
Yeah.
And it's just it's a Disney version of that story. I thought it was too much like animal shenanigans for my taste.
The
I like
original.
I like the stuff with a cat and the cups.
Lucifer.
I thought that was really funny in the original, and they toned that stuff down here, which is fine.
Uh-huh.
And they still give the mice something to do, which is all good. And the whole stuff with like the goose and the lizards and whatever, like all that stuff is fine. After all, this is just another version of the story. for the most part. Yeah, they flesh out some stuff. I had a huge problem with it towards the end. And that is because when she gets locked up in her tower, in the original, she actually really like she's very, very desperate and she's trying to get out. Like there's a sense of urgency there.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's absent from this one, where she's just immediately like, oh, I'm trying to forget this, and now I'm just like la-di-da, and she doesn't care that anyone is downstairs who would come to see her.
But
like,
I don't think she knows that anybody's downstairs in this one, where she does know in the animated, she's seen them. She knows that they're there. And so she, wants to get a key and everything. But yeah, no, it's a fair complaint. That is a flaw that
made the character way too passive in this version for my taste, which is really a shame. Like all the other stuff, it was all fine. I thought the new score was fine. I think visually it's good. I like the escape sequence. I think Branagh really directed and edited the hell out of that. It was really fun and dynamic. And that was before he went like full schlock. with all the stuff he does nowadays. But this one, it's just, to me, like both versions are like nothing special, but I thought like the original it's a tad more interesting because it's animated, it's from that period of time, and for the most part it kind of feels like it's a timeless classic story done in a Disney way. And this one is just another version, which is for the most part inoffensive, but I thought it was too long, kind of dragged. And
my favorite sequence from Cinderella, because it is a movie that I love, the original, is actually the Sing Sweet Nightingale sequence, because so often in animated films these days, they are just so busy with the plot. They don't take a second to just be with the characters and that song means nothing to the plot. It doesn't do anything for anything, but it's just a chance to just be with the character and experience this beautiful animation and just stop.
Yes, the animator's showing off. And
I love that sequence.
Having
it's
a
so
scene
pretty
brief,
with the bubbles.
I noticed that in the original, just letting a scene breathe and calming down for a bit. And I was like, this is really nice. Yeah, you rarely see this with animated movies nowadays. But other Disney things had much tighter scripts than that one, and that one is still a pretty short movie, and they still like with the whole like mouse stuff. I think they kind of waste time in the original.
That's fair.
That's just me.
I can see that. So what is your number one?
My number one. Let's first take a step back and let me say that I don't think any of these films are great. I think some of them are good. Some of them are kind of like average. I think some of these are really bad. So I'm just, in comparison to the other remakes, I'm remaking these, of course. And also like sometimes in comparison to like what they're based on and whatever.
Sure.
And I was trying to see like what is gonna be the number one. Like I thought like maybe Pete's Dragon, no, Christopher Robin, no, not quite. So I was thinking here and there, and like, what of these movies have I actually seen like multiple times? And my opinion hasn't really changed on it with every time. And then I figured it out, and that's why my number one is Maleficent.
Oh, okay, yeah. So, what do you like about Maleficent?
I like the whole like fantasy atmosphere of it, and also that it's not a straight up remake. It's just, let's take this, and I like how it tells you what it sets out to do from the very beginning, where the narrator says, let us take a story you already know and see if we maybe can put a different spin on it or something like that. And that's exactly what they do. And I really like the casting. I think like the visuals are fine. Like they really, even back then it didn't look all that great, but I still think it's visually creative. It's directed by Robert Stromberg, who is originally a production designer, an Oscar-winning production designer. Actually, he did like the original Avatar. He did Alice in Wonderland, the Tim Burton one, and he did the also Great and Powerful for Sam Raimi. And I think this one's directed fairly well. I love the score. I think James Newton Howard did a powerhouse of a score here. That's really nice. I like the casting. I think Angelina Jolie really works in the title role. I don't think it fully works as a concept in terms of what do we want with this, in terms of how bad is the character and all of it. I think the overall motivation, like how she comes to the point where she's kind of evil, I think that works, where it's basically, you know, the Disney equivalent of like a rape scene, basically,
Yep.
like how she loses her wings. I thought that was really, really well done and really disturbing in a way. I really like the chemistry she has with the crow. And
Mhm.
how and his design when he is a man, and that was actually because I saw this movie in the theater with my brother and his now wife, and when that comes up when she first turns the crow into a human, I was like, I could see the fan art being created in front of my very eyes, and all the fan fiction being written between these two characters, and I was right. But that was the first time I felt actually like, oh, I'm live in the room while this is happening, while the stuff is being conceived, and I thought that was really funny. And
Mhm.
overall, I think like, yeah, atmospherically, it's nice. I think the music is wonderful. It has a very nice like logo spin at the beginning, where they do like the Disney castle, but it looks different, and then it's part of the movie. And I think it kind of falls apart in the way that like how they characterize the fairies and all of that stuff. Like I think that's kind of and how she actually is the one who watches over her, but how they kind of get close when she tries to lift the curse again, and then they do the same twist with how he did it in Frozen, basically, which is kind
Yeah.
of whatever.
Yeah,
But I
it
still
really
think
was Frozen Part 2.
yes, and also the
Yeah.
madness of the king, the different spin they put on the dragon, like all of that stuff. I was kind of like, this is nice. This is a nice movie. It's basically, when it comes down to it, it's a standard fantasy flick, but
Mhm.
I think it is actually pretty nice, pretty fun, and that I guess, you know, compared to all the other ones, because this also manages to stand on its own for the most part.
Mhm.
I think this is just all in all, yeah,
Yeah.
pretty nice,
Interesting.
pretty well done.
Yeah, no, I can see all your points. I really hated it when it first came out. I was very
Mhm.
upset by it. But it was one of the original ones. And so I was just like, what are they doing to my story? You know, you take one of the most beautiful animated films ever made and you turn it into this, whatever this is. And that was frustrating to me. I also was just frustrated that I felt like they replaced one of the most chilling villains of all of Disney with basically this bland, you know, boring man king, you know, that and they turn Maleficent, who is just this very memorable character, into this victim who I know just wasn't like strong. And I didn't feel like her character choices really made much sense. Why would she go from cursing this child to then basically being its caregiver? You know, and watching over her every step of the way. Like that didn't really make any sense to me. And she's just so
Yeah.
vindictive in the original and so fun. And they just really sapped all of the fun out of it for me. They made the fairies are so incompetent in this, and I know they're like
Uh
in the original they are kind of silly and bubbleheads and stuff like that, but you know, with the cake and things like that. But like in
they're
this,
trying.
the fact that they would not notice, their whole job is to keep Aurora away from Maleficent, and that they would not notice that they have this like intimate relationship, basically, I mean, is absolutely ridiculous. That three people wouldn't notice. And so
I
that was
know.
frustrating. And so I don't know. I was just really upset with it when it came out. But I agree, in retrospect, like it's not that bad compared to some of these others, but
Yes.
I understand. I get it. I get what you're saying. My number one is Pete's Dragon. I think it is genuinely a beautiful family film. It kind of reminds me of The Black Stallion and Old
Hmm.
Yeller and kind of those
Yes.
movies, family films from the past that weren't afraid to tackle, you know, these tough topics of death and loss and grief. I mean, it is pretty brutal, that opening car crash and this scene and everything. And it's pretty tough, but I think it pays off for me, that in the relationship between Pete and Elliot. And it's just such a beautifully made movie. It's why I expected better from Peter Pan and Wendy, because I think David Lowery did such an incredible job of like keeping his own voice and his own style and everything within like the Disney formula. I'm like, how did you do it? How did you make this movie and have it be still so you and so clearly like your artistic voice in such a bold movie, and be part of not only a Disney movie, but to be part of the remake system is just really amazing. I think it also gets some bump for me because I genuinely think it's much better than the original. The original is very weird and it has some fun catchy songs, but and the animation is impressive the way that it's just so seamless. But
Yes.
the story and the humor is really has not aged well. In the original, there's a whole song about them selling this little boy, and is
wasn't it about
the bill of
selling, like,
sale, the bill of sale, and then they want to, and then the bad people want to cut up Elliot into pieces for their
the
tonic,
dragon.
and they have a whole song about it. Bizarre. I mean, the best thing about the original film, aside from like such a nice animation, is the Candle in the Water song. That's a beautiful song, and I kind of wish they had put that into the movie. But I think that this is a very strong Disney film, very strong family film. So it had to make my number one for my list because I just think it's one of the best things Disney's made in the last like 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, I already gave my 2 cents on it,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you know, it's
yeah.
not quite there for me, but I think it's this kind of story just told pretty well.
But we have Richard Southworth. He says Cinderella, Pete's Dragon, The Jungle Book, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Alice in Wonderland, Maleficent. Cici Takatato says, I haven't seen all of them, but my top 3 are Cinderella, The Little Mermaid, and Aladdin. My least favorites are The Lion King, Beauty and the Beast, and Alice in Wonderland. Ryan Robotan, he says top 3 Cinderella, Jungle Book, and easily Pete's Dragon for number 1. Bottom 3 Alice in Wonderland, Mulan, and easily Pinocchio for the worst one. Yep. Allison Lewis, he says probably her favorite is probably Beauty and the Beast, Cinderella, and a toss-up between Maleficent and Cruella. I like the animal remakes, but it's hard to look past the animation in some of them. Beauty and the Beast and Cinderella are also my favorite animated princess movies. Jordan M says top 3 Cinderella, Pete's Dragon, Christopher Robin. Bottom 3 The Lion King, Pinocchio, and Alice in Wonderland. CM Waters, he says he says that Lion King is his favorite.
Oh God.
Yeah, and then Cinderella, The Little Mermaid, and Cruella are his favorites. And Scott, she says that her favorites are Aladdin and then Little Mermaid. Christian Paystrip says top 3 are Cruella, Pete's Dragon, and Jungle Book, and the bottom 3 Alice in Wonderland, Dumbo, Alice Through the Looking Glass. I didn't see Pinocchio, thankfully. Michelle Benson, she says top 3 Pete's Dragon, Cinderella, Mary Poppins Returns. And then bottom 3 The Lion King, Alice Through the Looking Glass, and Pinocchio. So we're on the same page there. The Movies You Missed podcast says top The Jungle Book, Maleficent, Cinderella, bottom Atrocities, The Lion King, Pinocchio, Mulan. I'll just do a couple more. Tom Sawyer says The Maleficent, Cruella, The Jungle Book, and The Little Mermaid, and Mulan. The ones from the ones I watched, the bottom would be Beauty and the Beast, Alice Through the Looking Glass, and Christopher Robin. One more. Geek Salad says top 3 Jungle Book, Cruella, Christopher Robin. Bottom 3 Pinocchio, Alice Through the Looking Glass, and Lion King. So, and I seriously had tons. So I'll put a link to this thread because I could not read all of them.
So I'm guessing all of these people are gonna listen to this episode.
Yeah, hopefully. So yeah, let us know if you're listening what you think, and if you got through to the end, because this is a long episode, put in there in the comments put in there Rachel and friend #Rachel and friends rate Disney. Then we'll know that you listened to the whole thing, and that would be fun.
Nice.
Let us know what your rankings would be. We'd love to hear in the comments section. And if people want to follow you, your content, listen to your podcast, how do they do that?
Well, you could listen to Fans About Films, which is available on Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, basically anywhere where good and better podcasts can be found.
Great.
Lately I've done some new content. Some of it is in German, but a lot of it is in English as well.
Great.
Last year I did a wonderful episode on The Spirit with guest Tom Crowley. Or was it this year? I don't know. But yeah, Tom Crowley, wonderful comedian and actor from Britain, and he has he was hilarious in the episode. It's really, really funny. I just hope you don't mind really, really crass, cute humor, because that's the majority of that episode. But yeah, that's really fun. I co-host It's a 90s Christmas podcast, which is currently on a very long break, but Lyle Perez and I will be back soon, I hope. That one you can also find pretty much anywhere.
Didn't realize you did Christmas show. Cool.
Oh yeah, 90s Christmas podcast. Yeah, that podcast is fun, and I hope we can return someday. He's currently like figuring out something with the studio and all of that because they moved, him and his family. But yeah, we will be back.
Maybe we'll have to have you on Hallmarkies one of these days.
Absolutely.
We talk about Christmas movies out the wazoo over there.
We really should. Yeah,
that'd be fun.
I would love to be on Hallmarkies. Love that podcast. I also like, and when you want to hear my opinions on like certain other movies, you can listen to the episodes of the Film Brain podcast I was on, which you can also hear all of my opinions on the Lion King remake and on Zack Snyder's Justice League, for example. So yeah, that's
very similar films. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, they are.
It's a really long episode,
funny.
But it's worth it. And that's pretty much it. And yeah, if you want to contact me, it's at Lasse Vogt on Twitter. I refuse to call it the other name.
Right.
And
me too.
Facebook as well. Like, contact me if you have a podcast yourself. If you want to be on one of my shows, please contact me and we will figure something out. I do a show called Track Swap on also on Fans About Films and also for Sideshow Sound Theater, where we talk about film music. And if you're interested in that, please hit me up and we can arrange a date. And that'd be fun. That is most of my stuff. I also have a YouTube channel, The Deppard. I do English stuff on there. Check it out. Cool. It's fun. And that's all my stuff.
Well, we'll have all the links for all of that. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So check that out. Also, make sure that if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. We really, really, really appreciate that. And if you are listening on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Appreciate that so much. We also have the Patreon group, which is a lot of fun. And we have the merch store. You can hashtag Animation Junkie shirts. So check that out. We got some new designs, a lot of new Christmas designs. So take a look at that. And thanks so much, everybody. And we'll talk to y'all later. Bye.
And bye.